Welcome, the anointed ones. When you weren't supposed to win, your victory feels like a crime scene to your enemies. Pause. Let that sink in. Because chosen one, whether you realize it or not, you are the unexpected plot twist in a story they thought they were writing. You were never meant to glow this bright. You were never meant to survive that storm. And you were definitely never meant to come out shining with receipts, wisdom, peace, and that new level of sauce they can't replicate no matter how many times they hit copy. Here's a little fact to chew on. Jealousy isn't always loud. Sometimes it claps for you through gritted teeth, then goes home and throws a tantrum in silence. You didn't just mess up their expectations, you broke the algorithm, you got what they swore you'd never touch. Blessings they thought were embargoed from your bloodline, and now? They're pressed like a wrinkle in cheap polyester, but let's be honest, the real comedy here? They thought you getting ahead was an error in the system. Like God accidentally dropped your name in the favor pile. Meanwhile, you're out here walking in divine precision like, oh this glow up? This was pre-approved before your gossip was even born. Get ready, because in this video, we're diving deep into why your very existence is triggering spiritual allergies and why your haters are acting like you robbed a throne they didn't even build. Stay locked in, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly why they're mad, and why that madness is the loudest confirmation you were always chosen. Number 1. They were betting on your collapse, not your capacity. And now your existence is a living contradiction to their expectations. They weren't just hoping you'd fail. They planned your downfall in their minds. They rehearsed it. They counted on it. They sat back like armchair prophets, certain that your pain would finish you off. Every little setback in your life, they treated it like a countdown to your collapse. They thought the heartbreak would break your spirit. They thought the poverty would trap you. They thought the betrayal would poison your soul. They thought the shame would silence you forever. But now, here you are, still standing, still rising, still becoming. And to them, that's unbelievable. That's offensive. That's maddening. Because your rise isn't just a comeback. It's a complete contradiction to everything they said about you. Your very existence now challenges the script they wrote behind your back. You're not supposed to be glowing. You're not supposed to be thriving. In their world, you were supposed to stay down, stuck, silent, maybe even invisible. But you ruined the whole show by becoming the evidence that none of their predictions had power. You messed up the ending they already celebrated. It's deeper than jealousy. It's shock. The type of shock that exposes how wrong they were. You didn't just dodge destruction. You turned it into momentum. They were watching from the shadows, waiting for the punchline, and now they're watching you take stages they swore would never call your name. And the part that stings the most? You did it without begging, without becoming fake, without selling out, and without them. Every time you succeed, it's like you're performing a miracle in the middle of their doubt. Every win you collect is a reminder that their assumptions were powerless. They see your elevation as an error, but it's not. It's proof that you were chosen, not predicted. And that right there, that's why they're spiraling. You're the divine glitch in their program, and you're just getting started. Number 2, you didn't just survive what they threw. You thrived with what was meant to destroy you. They thought the things you went through would bury you. The betrayal, the disrespect, the abandonment, the lies. They thought those hits would leave you shattered. They believed the weight of it all would crush your spirit, steal your voice, and leave you stuck in survival mode for life. But instead of breaking, you built. Instead of folding, you figured it out. You didn't just bounce back. You transformed. And that's what has them losing it. They saw you bleeding and thought that was your end. They didn't expect you to stitch your wounds with wisdom and come back sharper than ever. They saw the toxicity around you and thought it would rot you from the inside. But you used it as fuel. You didn't just survive it. You made it serve you. Every moment of pain became a brick in your foundation. Every disappointment became a filter that sharpened your discernment. You turned betrayal into boundaries. You turned heartbreak into healing. You flipped it all, and now you're standing on what was supposed to destroy you. They can't stand that. They can't even process it. You were supposed to be bitter, broken, or barely hanging on. That's what they expected. That's what they needed to feel better about themselves. But you didn't give them that satisfaction. You became proof that pain doesn't have to define a person. It can refine them. You didn't just make it. You evolved in a way that they can't fake. And now they have to watch you walk in confidence and clarity that only someone who's been through hell could carry. They're mad because they gave the storm everything they had, and it still didn't stop you. You weren't supposed to thrive. You weren't supposed to find joy, peace, purpose, and power. But you did. And the fact that you didn't need their help, their approval, or their fake support, that's the part that really burns them. You grew where they thought nothing could. You became the miracle they never wanted to witness. Number 3, you were never supposed to make it because their power came from your weakness, and now you're a walking blackout to their control grid. Your success didn't just surprise them, it ruined their whole setup. These people never had real power. They just knew how to keep you feeling small. Their influence over you was built on your silence, your self-doubt, your trauma. The minute you started healing, they started panicking, because the moment you realized your worth, their fake authority began to crumble. They were never strong. You were just tired. And once you got your strength back, everything shifted. You see, they counted on your confusion. They needed you to question yourself so they could feel sure of themselves. But the moment you stopped needing their validation and started moving like someone who knew who they were, you cut off their power supply. Your glow didn't just offend them, it blacked out their entire control grid. They don't know how to operate without your insecurity feeding their ego, and now that you're no longer afraid to stand tall, they're left with nothing but their own emptiness. They weren't expecting you to unplug. They weren't ready for you to detach, to walk away, to elevate without clinging to them. And they definitely weren't ready for you to be fine without their approval. That part shocked them the most. You didn't just move forward, you moved different, quietly, confidently. And every step you take now exposes how unnecessary they really were. That's why they're mad. You were their source of relevance, whether they admitted it or not. They needed your weakness to feel powerful. Now you're moving with clarity, walking in peace, speaking with authority, and they're scrambling to find a way to matter again. But it's too late. You found your light, and it doesn't depend on their switch. You didn't just remove yourself from their reach. You exposed the fact that they never had a real grip on you in the first place. They just had your attention. And now that your focus is aligned with purpose, they're sitting in the dark, talking to themselves. Because the power they thought they had, that was never real. You were always the current. Number 4, they thought proximity to your pain gave them ownership of your destiny. But now they're watching you take what they called impossible. They thought just because they had a front row seat to your lowest moments, they earned permanent rights to your story. As if being close to your wounds gave them permission to decide how far you could go. They mistook access for authority. They saw you at rock bottom, and in their minds that made them part owner of your future. They assumed that because they witnessed your breakdown, they'd be entitled to your breakthrough. But now they're realizing the hard truth. Proximity to pain is not a passport to your purpose. They believed that seeing you cry, struggle, or question yourself meant they had a claim to your greatness. That just because they knew your weaknesses, they could forever hold a seat at your table. But here's the twist. You grew. You evolved. You healed in places they thought would always be bleeding, and in doing so, you outgrew every space that once felt like a cage. Now you're walking through doors they swore would stay closed to you forever, and they're stuck watching from the outside, stunned and bitter. What they really can't handle is the fact that they got comfortable seeing you down. That version of you made them feel safe. You were relatable, you were manageable, you weren't a threat. But the healed, whole, elevated version of you, that version intimidates them. That version doesn't ask for permission, doesn't explain itself, and doesn't keep old ties just to make others feel secure. And now they're dealing with the reality that their knowledge of your past doesn't give them keys to your future. They're standing outside locked doors now, confused, frustrated, and convinced something isn't fair. But the truth is, They misread the assignment. You didn't invite them into your pain so they could claim your promise. You were just surviving. And now that you're thriving, they don't know how to exist without the broken version of you they secretly preferred. Number 5. You became a mirror they can't avoid, and the reflection exposes everything they buried. You didn't attack them, you didn't compete with them, you didn't even mention their names, but somehow your growth offends them, your healing, your clarity, your elevation. It triggers them in ways they can't explain. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your life has become a mirror. And every time they see you, they're forced to confront what they never became. They're looking at someone who made hard decisions, broke patterns, faced demons, and kept going. That reflection is unbearable for people who chose comfort over transformation. You became everything they avoided becoming. Every step you take forward is a loud reminder of the steps they never took. You show up with confidence, and it echoes the moments they chose to play small. You operate with integrity, and it spotlights the lies they told themselves to stay in toxic cycles. You pursue purpose, and it makes their excuses feel heavier. They can't hide from your evolution because it's louder than your words. It's in your presence, your peace, your posture. You don't need to say a thing. Your existence speaks volumes. They're not mad at you. They're mad at what you represent. You're the physical proof that the version of themselves they buried is still possible. You didn't become their enemy. You became their conviction. You remind them of the dreams they let die, the strength they pretended they didn't have, the change they kept postponing. You didn't expose them. They exposed themselves by being uncomfortable with your glow. And that's why they can't stand to see you win. Because in their mind, if you came from the same pain, the same place, the same trauma, and you're rising, then they're out of excuses. You reflect the truth they've been avoiding, that their stagnation wasn't fate. It was a choice. And now, they're haunted by the version of themselves you became. Number 6. They didn't hate your wins. They hated that God didn't ask them first. They didn't mind the idea of you winning, as long as they were the ones to decide when, how, and how much. Your elevation became offensive because it didn't go through them. It didn't require their validation, their cosign, their green light. You skipped the line they thought they were guarding. They wanted to be gatekeepers of your destiny, but God bypassed their opinions and moved on your behalf anyway. That's what really cut deep. Not that you rose, but that they weren't consulted first. To them, success is political. It's something you're supposed to earn through networks, flattery, submission, and most importantly, approval from the right people. So when you walked into breakthrough on the back of obedience, silence, prayer, and warfare they never saw, it offended their logic. It shattered their idea of how blessings are distributed. You weren't supposed to receive that kind of favor unless they stamped you as worthy. But heaven never asked for their permission. They're not just shocked. They're insulted. Because your breakthrough wasn't orderly. It didn't follow their imagined hierarchy. You didn't play their game, and yet you won. You didn't beg for access, yet you walked through doors. You didn't water yourself down to fit in, and still you rose. That messes with people whose egos are tied to being seen as the gate. They saw your wins as a breach in the system, not because you cheated, but because you didn't need them to make it happen. You exposed their illusion of control. You shattered their fantasy that your value had to be unlocked by them. What they hate most is realizing they don't get to be the narrator of your story. Your testimony rewrote the rules they lived by, and now they're stuck, questioning everything they thought made someone qualified. They don't hate your glow. They hate that God didn't hand them the switch. Number 7. Your rise dismantled their hierarchy. Because you didn't climb the ladder, you built a new one. Your rise didn't just shock them, it disrupted them. It broke their unspoken rules, exposed their inflated roles, and burned down the illusion that they were in control of who gets to elevate. They spent years building ladders they thought you had to climb, ladders filled with hoops, politics, favoritism, and quiet submission. But you didn't ask for a boost. You didn't wait for permission. You built your own lane, your own foundation, and your own momentum. And that's what shook them. You didn't just win, You made their power look unnecessary. They were never actual gatekeepers. They were just loud voices in a system designed to make people feel like success had to be earned through them. So when you bypassed all that, when you walked in purpose, stayed authentic, moved in silence, and still arrived, it left them exposed. You didn't knock on their doors. You built your own house. That's what stings. Because they spent more time controlling access than developing themselves. And now that your rise didn't include them, they're realizing the platform they were guarding wasn't even real. They thought their approval was the gate. They thought their network, their reputation, their circle was what gave people permission to shine. But your rise reminded them that favor doesn't flow through ego. It flows through obedience, alignment, and resilience. You proved that the divine doesn't play by their rules, and now they're not just mad, they're embarrassed. Because the very thing they tried to withhold from you, you received anyway, and without ever playing their game. Your existence now questions their entire structure. You didn't just bypass their system, you invalidated it. You showed everyone watching that their ladder was never the only way up, that their platform was optional, that they were holding doors that no one really needed to walk through, and now they're left holding keys to a kingdom that's empty, because the throne was never theirs to guard. Number 8, your yes from the universe exposed their entire life as a no they settled for. Your yes wasn't just a turning point for you, it was a mirror shoved in their face. You said yes to healing, to purpose, to growth, to calling, and in doing so you triggered something deep inside them. Not because they hate your joy, but because they recognize it. They remember when it tried to rise in them too. Your glow reminds them of who they could have been if they hadn't silenced their inner voice. Your courage reminds them of the risks they talked themselves out of. Your yes exposed the no they gave themselves out of fear, comfort, or pride. They told themselves they were being practical, mature, responsible, but deep down, they know they chose safe over sacred. And now watching you walk in alignment while they're stuck in cycles they secretly hate, that's torment. Not because you did anything to them, but because your alignment shines a light on their avoidance. You woke up something in them they buried under distractions and routines, and now that thing won't shut up. It whispers every time they see you thrive, you could have done that too. You still can. But instead of facing that truth, it's easier for them to resent you, to criticize your process, to question your worth, to call you lucky. Because the alternative is to admit they abandoned themselves, that they had a dream and let it die, that they had a calling and left it on read. You are the walking proof that it was possible all along. And that kind of proof is painful to people who built their whole identity on pretending it wasn't. They're not mad at your blessings. They're haunted by the reminder that their own were real too. And they let them go. You didn't just rise, you reawakened their potential. And nothing haunts a person like seeing someone else become what they know they were meant to be. Number 9. You didn't play dirty, you played different. And that's what really drives them insane. They expected you to meet them in the dirt, to engage in the same low-level games they've mastered. They thought they could trap you in their mess, pull you down to their level, and challenge you to a battle where they'd feel comfortable. But you didn't bite. You didn't get caught up in their tactics, their gossip, their manipulation. Instead, you took the high road, the spiritual path. You elevated. You didn't play dirty, you played different. And that's what burns them. They can't wrap their heads around it. They wanted you to fight the way they fight, to use the same tricks and low blows they used to feel in control. But you didn't stoop to their level. You didn't try to outshine them through petty tactics. You didn't need to compete in their arena. Instead, you raised your vibration and moved into a space they couldn't even comprehend. You played a different game. And that game, it wasn't about revenge. It was about ascension. While they were stuck fighting for status, for approval, for the shallow wins, you were reaching higher. You were aligning with purpose. You were connecting with your source and letting that power fuel your every step. They couldn't follow because their tools don't work where you're going. They've got their hands full in the mud, using manipulation, control, and drama to get by. But you're moving in a place where none of that has any power. Your energy is rooted in something far greater than what they can even imagine. And that's what makes them lose their minds. They thought they could drag you into the gutter and watch you struggle. Instead, you made them irrelevant. You didn't just escape, you transcended. You didn't get even, you ascended. You didn't need to prove anything on their terms. You're operating from a space of peace, purpose, and divine direction. And that's why they're so rattled. Because they know they'll never reach where you're going. And that's their biggest fear. Number 10. You moved without permission, and in their world, that's the ultimate betrayal. You didn't wait for their approval. You didn't seek their permission, and in their eyes, that's the ultimate betrayal. Control freaks thrive on the idea that they hold the keys to your success, that their validation is required for you to move forward. So when you decided to take action without asking for their input, without begging for their approval, you shattered everything they thought they knew about their influence. You didn't just break the rules, you exposed how hollow they really were. To them, your independence is like a personal insult. They've always relied on the belief that they could control who moves, who wins, who rises. And you didn't just rise, you did it without their say-so. That's what makes them furious. It's not that you succeeded, it's that you did it on your terms, without checking in with them. You didn't need their green light. You didn't need their validation to step into your greatness, and that's what cuts them deep. You showed them that they were never the gatekeepers they thought they were. For them, success isn't about the result. It's about who controls it. They've always viewed people as pawns in their game, and your independence was a direct threat to their narrative. The moment you stopped seeking their approval, you took away the one thing that fed their ego, your dependence. Their entire identity was built on controlling others, making them feel small, and keeping them reliant. But your ability to stand on your own, to move forward without looking back, is like a crack in the foundation of their entire existence. Now, they're not just angry at your success. They're furious that they no longer have a say in your journey, that they no longer control your narrative. And that's what really eats at them. You've become the author of your own story, and they're just spectators. Number 11. They mocked your struggle, thinking it would be your identity. Now they're choking on the narrative they created. They thought your struggle was your story. They saw your pain, your hard times, your vulnerability, and they turned it into a joke. Something they could gossip about, something they could laugh at. They didn't realize that your struggle wasn't the end of you, it was just the beginning. They assumed that because they witnessed your lowest moments, they had a right to define your narrative. They thought your breakdowns would define your future. But now, as you rise, they're choking on the very narrative they created. What they didn't understand is that your story wasn't a tragedy, it was a triumph in disguise. Every hardship, every tear, every battle you fought wasn't a sign of weakness. It was the prologue to something much greater. They turned your pain into a spectacle, but now it's the reason they're losing sleep at night. They never thought that the very version of you they mocked, the one they labeled as broken or lost, would be the one to rise and leave them behind. Now they can't stop thinking about it. They can't stop replaying the moments when they made fun of you, when they assumed you'd never bounce back, when they believed your downfall would be permanent. They're haunted by the truth that the person they ridiculed wasn't just surviving. You were building, growing, becoming someone unrecognizable to them. The version of you they laughed at has become the version of you they envy. And the worst part, they can't erase it. The pain they shared as gossip is now the foundation of your success. The story they thought was finished is still unfolding, and now they're left in the dust, grappling with the reality that the narrative they laughed at is the reason they'll never catch up. Your struggle wasn't your identity, it was just the spark. Now it's the fire they can't put out. Number 12. Your favor exposes their fraudulence, because you earned with integrity what they faked with performance. Your favor is a mirror to their facade. It reflects everything they tried to hide behind. Their fake smiles, their curated image, their hollow performances. They thought they could fake it till they made it. But the truth always surfaces. You didn't have to wear a mask. You didn't have to pretend. You earned your blessings the hard way, through integrity, through authenticity, through a willingness to wrestle with your own soul. And now, that very authenticity shines brighter than anything they could ever manufacture. They wore masks, playing roles to fit into a world that values appearances over substance. They performed, they projected, they convinced people they were what they weren't. But while they were acting, you were fighting. You were facing your fears, confronting your darkness, and overcoming your own limitations. Every victory you achieved was built on the foundation of your raw, unfiltered truth. You didn't hide from the struggle. You embraced it. And that's why your success is so terrifying to them. Your authenticity exposes their fraudulence in a way they can't escape. They might have fooled others with their polished exterior, but your genuine growth, your real progress, and your unwavering integrity cut through their lies like a hot knife through butter. You didn't cheat the system. You didn't play games. You just showed up as you, and that's what's making them panic. What they fear most is that your truth is undeniable. They can hide behind their performance all they want, but your authenticity is louder than their act. And the worst part, it proves they were never playing the game for real. They might have looked successful from the outside, but your real, unmasked success exposes how hollow their wins were. You didn't just earn your favor, you earned it through who you are, and that's something they'll never be able to fake. Number 13. You're not just succeeding, you're succeeding audaciously in places they claimed were cursed for you. You're not just succeeding, you're thriving in spaces they swore you'd never belong. They looked at the doors you were supposed to knock on and declared them permanently closed for you. They saw your background, your struggles, and your perceived limitations, and they were quick to mark those doors as out of reach for someone like you. They thought your path would always be blocked, that you would forever be bound by the same chains they imposed on you. But now, you're not just walking through those doors you were never supposed to enter. You're remodeling the entire space. You didn't just show up and fit in. You didn't just slip through the cracks and hope to be accepted. You've come in with a boldness, a confidence, and an energy that not only forces those doors open, but redefines what those doors mean. Where they saw barriers, you saw opportunities. Where they saw limits, you saw room for expansion. And now, as you step through the threshold, the structure they believed was set in stone is shifting under your feet. You're not merely succeeding in their world, you're making it yours. They watched you from the sidelines, waiting for you to fail in places they told you weren't meant for you. They thought you'd give up when the doors didn't open on your first knock, when the obstacles seemed too big. But your persistence, your vision, and your refusal to accept their limitations have turned those spaces into something entirely new. You're proving them wrong, and more importantly, you're showing the world that those doors weren't closed because of you. They were closed because they couldn't see what you were capable of doing once you got inside. And now, you're not just entering rooms that were off limits for people like you. You're changing the way those rooms are built, changing the way people think about who belongs there. You're not just succeeding in places they said were cursed for you. You're rewriting the rules of the game. Number 14. You were their cautionary tale until you became the prophecy. You were once the cautionary tale they used to warn others about failure, weakness, and limitations. They spun your story to illustrate what happens when things go wrong, when someone falls, when someone dares to dream but stumbles along the way. They made sure people understood that your journey was the one to avoid, the story of how you didn't measure up, how you weren't worthy of success. They told others to learn from your mistakes, never realizing that they were underestimating the depth of your strength. But now, the narrative has completely flipped. What they thought would be your downfall has become your rise, and your story is no longer a warning, it's a prophecy. Those same people who once laughed, judged, and mocked you, now they're watching you as if you're a legend in the making. They're studying your life as though it's sacred scripture, a guide to how someone can come from the ashes and create something unbreakable. You've become the very thing they feared you would never be, a living testament to perseverance, strength, and ultimate victory. You've taken the story they thought would haunt you and turned it into something they now wish they had written themselves. They hate that you took the narrative out of their hands and gave it a twist they never saw coming. They can't stand that your struggles, your so-called failures, turned out to be the very foundation of your success. And what makes them burn with frustration is that now they no longer control the ending. They once had the pen, they once wrote you off as a failure, but now you're the one writing the chapters, and the plot has changed beyond their wildest imagination. Their power was in controlling the narrative, and you've completely dismantled that by proving that even in the hardest of times, the ending is still yours to decide. You didn't just survive, you flipped the script, and now they have no choice but to watch as you redefine what it means to overcome. In the end, the very things they thought would break you have become the catalysts for your transformation. You were never the story they tried to write. You were the one waiting to unfold in a way they could never anticipate. You didn't fit their mold, you didn't follow their script, and you sure as hell didn't ask for their permission. You rose, not in spite of the odds, but because you refused to let their limitations define your potential. And now, as you continue to evolve, they're left in awe, powerless to stop your ascension. They were so busy trying to keep you small, trying to put you in a box with rules that didn't apply to your destiny, that they missed the fact that you were always destined to break free. The same doors they said would never open for you are now wide open, and you're not just walking through them, you're leaving your mark on every single one. This is your story, and no one, not even the people who tried to control it, can take that away from you. Your success isn't just the triumph of your efforts, it's the ultimate proof that you are exactly where you were always meant to be. You didn't just succeed, you redefined the very meaning of success. And the beauty of it all, it's just the beginning. So keep walking, keep rising, keep proving them wrong. Because what they thought was your downfall, it was your launching pad. And now, the world is watching as you soar, unapologetically, authentically, and undeniably. The ending to your story is yours to write, and it's more magnificent than they could ever have imagined. If this message resonated with you, and you felt that spark of truth, then don't just leave it here. Hit that subscribe button to stay connected. Join the family because there's so much more to uncover, more depth, more clarity, and more empowerment coming your way. If this story ignited something in you, give it a like, share it with anyone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your journey, and how you're rising above the noise. Don't keep this energy to yourself. Let's spread it far and wide because the world needs more people like you showing up unapologetically. Remember, this is just the beginning. Keep shining, keep growing, and keep defying expectations. Let's keep breaking through those barriers together. Subscribe, like, share, and comment, and let's make sure this message reaches those who need it most.